Seahawks fans, wherever you may be, thanks for listening to the show. Join your hosts, Bill Alvstad and Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Hey, hi, Seahawks fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers. We're here to talk Seahawks football. Should be a fun show. Got a couple mini camp notes to share with you from practices that occurred on Friday and Saturday at the VMAC. And then we're going to get into kind of a unique and special show for you today where we're going to share Keith's shadow draft. We're going to let him explain exactly what that is. It kind of follows along with the draft choices that Keith would have made had he been the GM, regardless of what Seattle ended up choosing. And so that'll be fun to discuss that. If he wants to, he may share some past shadow drafts that he's done and what the outcomes would have been had those players been selected. That would have been kind of interesting, Keith. I would imagine you probably have not prepped for that, but
I have not prepped for that part of it.
I would love to see your track record just to see what kind of status that we would put on you. I mean, you could be the draft god, or you could be in the in the dustbins of history. I don't know which it is. Giving you the benefit of the doubt, though.
It's closer to the dustbins, that's for sure. No, the pros are the pros at this for a reason. This is just fun. It's just we do so much prep, and actually the last few years, because we do so much prep, my drafts are decent. But the pros are the pros at this, right? And they have more information than we do. Like I said, it's just something that's fun that I do during the draft, and I like to share it because people like to laugh at me, and I'm okay with that.
So as soon as we get done talking about the minicamp stuff really quick, we'll come back and you can kind of get into detail exactly how this works for you. Okay, so news and notes and observations and stuff. The general observation, I think for me, the biggest takeaway is that Jalen Milroe is probably the most talked about. And that's not necessarily a surprise considering what actually goes on in a minicamp. And it kind of highlights his abilities more so than almost any other. And then just the kind of the player that we acquired when we made that pick, maybe at least the perception to the general fan base is that maybe he's slightly more advanced in a certain amount of skill sets that he brings to the table versus just focusing on the passing aspect. So he does have a lot of intangibles, Keith, that that you want to have in a potential franchise quarterback, bringing to the table all of the leadership qualities, the ability to grasp the playbook and really take command in the huddle, and just doing all the work ethic type things that a quarterback of that nature is expected to hold down in the NFL. He does all those things really well. And, you know, you listen to the interviews after practice and so forth, and just a real sharp guy who has full command of what he's doing, why he's there, what he needs to work on. He's cognizant of all those things. I'm sure he probably does have an ego, but it's diminished to the point where he doesn't allow that to interfere with anything that he's expected to do, or information he's expected to take in and process and learn. And just really kind of a fun prospect to envision having the best case scenario work out, which for me would be, this is kind of a fun year. We get to see him in a few different sets where he comes in and takes a series now and then, and continues to learn, continues to progress, continues to be with the coaching staff, build those skills that that he needs to develop, and then next year be ready to really compete. And it's just kind of an exciting player, just from a skill set standpoint and a potential. I mean, this could be something that if you hit on it, which at least he's in play now. He's a quarterback that showed up and kind of really is you can see the potential. That'd be kind of fun to watch over time. And I guess he had a couple of great camps, hit some plays, missed some plays, but overall, I think the coaching staff came away impressed with the player and the person.
Yeah. I mean, it is a great sign. I mean, this is one of the things that, like, when people are still trying to figure out why Shedeur Sanders fell, what some of the stuff that people are talking about is, like, his interviews and, like, just kind of his attitude, and on top of some physical, mechanical things, and Milroe has none of those issues. He comes in, he's polished as being used to being the face of a team, and um, that's the stuff that you need. That's the stuff that you want to see, because you're looking at him as a potential franchise guy. He needs to be able to stand up and be the face of the franchise if he's going to be a franchise quarterback. So he came in and did that. Like, the stuff I've read was that he did well during practices. He hit his targets and that kind of stuff. And yeah, he made mistakes, but he's learning a system for the first time, so he's going to. Um, I wasn't completely surprised by it, because there's no pads, there's no contact. He can focus on the little things like setting his feet and keeping his mechanics right and that kind of stuff. But as Bill brought up right before we hit record, the same was true at the Senior Bowl, and that week was a disaster for Milroe. So we'll see whether that he continues to be able to do those things. But so far, so good. I mean, that's really the solution there. Is it's just so far so good. He's given us everything we want.
So really, the way that the mini camps are structured, you're not going to really notice or take note of players that stand out on the defense and offensive lines. We could talk about Gray Zabel, but mostly you're going to just talk about the kind of person he is and the character and the traits that he has. But on the field stuff, they were just running some drills and so forth. Other players that had the opportunity to stand out was Emanwari and Arroyo. Both really looked the part, like long, fast, fluid, and Arroyo just continued to make catches over and over in practice that kind of wowed at least the press that was there. I listened to Hawk Blogger the other day or yesterday, because he had been there and then did a podcast about it, and kind of sharing what he saw in person. He just came away extremely impressed with the tight end, in that he just made some catches look effortless, that were in any other person would have been, a struggle to make or whatever. And that's encouraging to me. And then Emanwari just kind of comes in, really wants to establish himself as a leader, even as a rookie, make a big impact on defense, the way that Mike McDonald was glowing about him in his presser, and the ability to use him in multiple looks, multiple fronts, really was kind of encouraging. I mean, you're going to expect that. There's no doubt. This is just a mini camp. It's May. We get that. But it's kind of fun to talk about these players now. They've got their first look in person of this group of players together. There was 11 draft picks selected that were on hand. A couple were on the sidelines with injuries rehabbing, but 17 undrafted free agents that they signed, and 40 additional rookie invites to take a look at. I would imagine a few of those would be signed, but it's early in this process. The vets come in on Monday and start kind of a vet camp, and so that'll be interesting as well. We'll have some news later in the week about all that kind of stuff. One of the other little tidbits of note, and it really is a tidbit when you consider the player, Jamie Sheriff played at some outside linebacker last year, rushing the passer, had 3 sacks in preseason, kind of one of those guys you kind of rooted for to make the roster. He ended up being on the practice squad, coming back and forth a little bit onto the roster throughout the year. But he said, McDonald said the team is experimenting, quote unquote, with him as being an off the ball linebacker hybrid that would kind of rush the passer as well. And we kind of talked about those kind of guys in the draft as potentially guys that Seattle would look at. And ended up passing on those guys in the draft. But I think that's a interesting prospect for him, that the team is really interested in him and investing in that prospect to see if they can get him onto the roster this year. So that's interesting to me.
Well, that's part of it. And the other part of it is that after the top two guys at the position, the two interior middle linebacker starters, there is a wasteland of depth behind them. And
Right.
so converting guys and doing what they need to find guys that can play that position in a pinch or during practice and during preseason games will be really important to the team at this point. So that's also part of it.
One of the other things I did note is I went out and looked at how much salary cap Seattle currently has, and they have about $29 million of real salary cap, about 34, 35 overall, that they could spend still, before the first kickoff of the season in September to bring on a player if they should feel like they need to, which is good. And normally they don't have that kind of money this time of the year. So they still do have some options. I think defensive tackle comes to mind. If you look at the roster, defensive tackle, potentially another guard if they need it. Like if they feel like Haynes hasn't progressed, Bradford looks like he's not going to, make it or whatever. They've got an opportunity there to spend money if they need to, or trade. And then the trade deadline stuff as well. If they feel like they've gone 4 or 5 games in the season, they know that they're going to need something in order to be competitive for the remainder of the season. They can go out and get a guy. The other thing that gives me pause on that though is they've only got 5 draft picks next year. I can't remember off the top of my head what those exactly are, but draft capital next year is really low compared to what it was this year. So I'm not sure about that.
Well, I mean, that's one of those things like Bradford's likelihood of being on this team come September is extremely low.
I don't think so, Keith.
I do, because if you look at what they drafted, the 3 offensive linemen, he is the opposite of them.
He is
He's
opposite
clearly
as
not
far
what
as
they want.
size, but his athleticism ranked out. If you go look at his athleticism score and all that kind of stuff and agility, what he did on 3-cone, and it really actually projects as a guy that looks like he could work in a zone scheme. So I'm anxious to see how he translates his game and takes to the coaching. That will be the key with him. I don't know that it's necessarily extremely low, only because he's going to get a fair shot with this new scheme. And if he comes in and really kind of performs well, I think he's got a spot, just because of the depth isn't so great. And you talking about Cable Dew and a couple of other guys. Yeah, those guys definitely have a shot this year, but I wouldn't rule him out either.
Well, I was just looking at, I didn't go back and look at his combine information or that. I just looked at what I saw on film. And this is a guy that does not belong in a zone stretch running game. And we already know he can't pass block to save his life. So if he's
I would
not, doesn't
also
have the
say
value in the running game, like why is he on the roster? I think he's got a lot more value to another team. And I think he's going to be gone. He's going to be traded. It's probably going to, they'll get a 7th round pick for him if they get anything, some sort of conditional pick. But I would be surprised if he's on the roster.
I think everything that you just said is and could be true, and possibly in the likely bucket, but also I think the whole offensive line underperformed last year, and the staff we know was not up to the challenge. So his coaching last year was not good, and I think that he's going to get a little bit wider berth this year to kind of figure out exactly who he is as a player. Now, that may or may not work. I don't know. We'll find out. Okay, so talk to me about this shadow draft thing. We've done this before. I think one time we did this maybe it was last year or the year before. Remind everyone how this works for you, why you do it, and why it's fun.
Well, it's fun just because like we put all the time and energy into prepping for the draft and doing the shows that we do. And I feel like I go into the draft with a reasonable knowledge of the entire draft pool of players. And then it's just a matter of, well, we know what Schneider did. What would I do? Um, and to make it fair and to make it real, it has to be done in the moment. And so you can't go back later and be like, okay, so the Seahawks picked this player and then go through the scroll through who was drafted after and pick someone. It doesn't work that way. You got to do it in the moment. And so it's like you basically wait, and then as soon as it says the pick is in, um, then as the person doing the shadow draft, I make a pick and I write it down um, because well, it's you make a pick and then you have to cross it out because the Seahawks traded or whatnot. And sometimes it keeps you on your feet a little bit.
So you
Um,
don't follow the trades? So you make the original picks as slotted?
no, I make the picks when the Seahawks make a pick.
Okay.
So, for
So if
instance,
they
like
trade, you trade.
yep, when the Seahawks traded up to 35, they made a pick at 35. Who would I have picked at 35?
Gotcha.
Um, Now, granted, that particular one, I was in my car and um, got a thing saying the Seahawks traded up to 35, and I go, okay, well, I have no idea. I'm like, if this player is
Who's in that
available,
range? Right.
yeah, I said, okay, if this player is available, that's when my pick, and if not, it'll be this one, and if not, it'll be this one, just in my head, and then um, the next time I stopped, which was at my kid's school because I was there to pick him up, I like grabbed my phone really quick, figured out who was available, and and did it that way. And it was the player that I put as my number one, so it ended up working out. I don't know. Like I said, it's fun. It's like something for me to do. It keeps me from wandering off and forgetting about the draft, especially when they get down to the sixth round and whatever. And it's always just one of those fun things that I've picked up.
Okay. So let's talk about your picks and let's judge you.
The first two picks at 18 and 35, there's not much to talk about because I did
Okay.
exactly what John Schneider did. It
Yeah.
was Gray Zabel and Amore at 35, and that was entirely just they picked. I looked at who was available. I'm like, I wanted to come away from this with Zabel, so I put Zabel. Now I kind of expected the Seahawks to move down a little bit and get Zabel, but a lot of the stuff I've read since then has always been like he was the guy they absolutely felt like they had to have and didn't want to get cute moving down for no reason. So,
Right.
um, yeah, makes sense for them. Made sense for me. When they traded up to M and Wari, like I said, I was in my car, so I wasn't even sure if other like certain other guys were available.
Right.
Because they traded up, I was waiting. I thought I had until pick 50, and 35 was quite the jump. And so Enamori, when it was the guy, like, and if you knew, if the people listening go back to all of our shows pre-draft, they would know that I have been enamored with Enamori
Absolutely.
and all the things that he could do. So that should come as no surprise to anybody.
Yeah, I love those two picks. Obviously, I think that, Zabel just made too much sense. The Emanwari pick, that they intentionally had to move up for somebody, and you are then left wondering, okay, who did they move up for? And if you take a
Mm-hmm.
look at the list of available players, and you were comfortable picking Emanwari in the 20s or even at 18 potentially, you would definitely feel comfortable picking him at 35. And
Yeah,
so that made
and
a
I
lot of sense.
and I knew that he hadn't been picked in the first 32 picks because that was the day before. And so yeah, round two. I mean, CX had the like fourth pick of the of round two, and or no, third pick of round two, and so there
You do
were
know that the ESPN draft tracker exists, right, Keith?
not while I'm driving. I was literally on Highway 14 driving, and I get somebody texted me, and it popped up on my dashboard. So Siri is like, this person says Seahawks traded up to 35, and I'm like, crap.
That's
So I
funny.
had to wait. I had to wait till I got to my kid's school to pick him up, and then I pulled into a spot. And yes, then I pulled up the ESPN draft
Okay.
tracker, and that's
Well,
my favorite
according
way to
to all the
rounds.
pundits, your draft picks get an A to A plus grade. So good job so far, Keith.
Thank you. I
All
mean,
right.
to me, the first couple of rounds tend to be fairly easy. When these things get funny is later, because the idea that I mean, I don't think I did that bad this year. There have been times when I picked people in like the late fifth round who didn't get drafted, and
Right.
stuff like that. So that's when then things get funny. The first couple of rounds tend to be fairly easy, as far as getting guys where they belong. So
Okay. So we traded the 52nd pick to go get Emanwari. What did we do at 50?
at 50, the Seahawks took Elijah Arroyo, right? Tight end, incredibly athletic guy. So like a guy that made a lot of positive impact or impression, I guess I should say, at the rookie minicamp. I went and did Olafemi Oladegia, um,
Okay.
the hybrid edge middle linebacker from UCLA. Um, you can never have enough pass rushers, and you can have too little depth at middle linebacker, and that's what the Seahawks currently have. I liked Oladejio going into this pre-draft process. He was there. It made sense to me that he would be a guy that the Seahawks would be interested in, and so he was my pick. Um, and then when it was Arroyo, I was actually really surprised that it was Arroyo and not somebody like him or Trey Harris or Benjamin Morrison. Um, yeah, like I said, I was really surprised at who the Seahawks picked. But now, this is one of the things that after the draft that I go back and do. Where did Oladejio actually get drafted? He got drafted at 52 to the Titans, who the Seahawks had traded
Wow.
with to move up for Emanwari. So I didn't feel terrible about that pick. So
Yeah, it's funny because through the draft process, he was almost readily available in the third round. Definitely available some of the mock drafts that you would do in the fourth round, and I always thought that he would go a little earlier just because of his skill set. I think the prospects, I don't for whatever reason, in the old Pac-10, now the Big 12 were just undervalued as a whole, just from being on the West Coast, and a lot of the writers are on the East Coast and so forth. I like his skill set. I like his ability to kind of be diversified. 250 pounds, you think, well, he's an edge guy, but he's also just, bulky. Like when you look at him, he's filled out. He's a, he can set the edge for you, and all that good stuff. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Boye Mafe, the way Boye Mafe turned out. It's like when we drafted Mafe, he was considered, an edge player first, and ability to rush the passer. The way the Seahawks used him his first year, he almost exclusively played the first couple downs and then came off the field, and they didn't let him rush the passer. He set the edge and stopped the run, and he was pretty good at that, better than advertised. I think this guy comes in and immediately is a down, 1 and 2, stops the run, and kind of comes out and kind of builds that pass rush repertoire, and kind of expands
mhm.
his game after that. But I liked him as a prospect for sure. Okay,
Yeah.
so after that, what do we do?
So at 92, the Seahawks took Jalen Milroe, which is going to be the most talked about pick in um, this draft class for quite a while, just because he's a quarterback and that happens. And I
Mm-hmm.
selected Deani Walker, the nose tackle out of Florida, I believe. She didn't write that down. No, wait. Yeah.
The nose tackle?
Nose tackle, Deone
Walker?
Walker, 6'7", 331 pounds. Absolute massive human being who is going to dominate the middle against the run and eat double teams, keep the linebackers clean, and not have a lot of impact on passing downs early in his career. But the nose tackle, like a guy like that, 230 pounds or 330 pounds, is someone they don't have on the roster. They went and
Yeah.
signed last year with Hankins, and then he's currently unsigned. They needed a guy. I felt that Walker was one of the better ones in this draft, so I went ahead and took him.
So is there a reason you wouldn't have taken Milroe at this spot?
I wasn't looking quarterback, and I wasn't looking Milroe in particular, just because of um, the limitations as a thrower.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's not that I'm against the pick. To me, I looked at Seahawks had needs, and a nose tackle was a need, and there was a really good one on the board that I liked, so I went ahead and grabbed him.
Right. Yeah.
Now,
No, I
the,
like him. He's a huge dude.
yeah, the NFL did not like him as much as I did, though. He went 109 to the Buffalo Bills.
Okay.
So
But that's in the neighborhood.
it's almost around later. I think it's about half around later. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
the following round, following day actually. Um,
Yeah. The nice thing about this kid is he's 21. He just turned 21. He's huge, like what, 327, 6'7", wingspan, like almost an 84-inch wingspan,
yeah.
just a huge pterodactyl human.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to, stuff the run and potentially have a little upside on the pass rush stuff. His straight line speed is poor, but his ability to take on double teams and shed blocks and make a difference in the middle is there for sure. I like him as a prospect. I don't know if I would have taken him at that point, but he was definitely on my watch list for them because they need a defensive tackle like that. And coming away out of the draft without one, I think was going to be one of those things that they might regret at the end. And I think they probably did because they brought in 4 undrafted rookie free agents into camp at defensive tackle. So I knew and they signed Hankins after the draft. So I know that they missed on that and they are looking to kind of fill that void between now and the season, and we'll just see what happens. But yeah, I like that pick. Okay. I don't have our old draft up. I don't have the draft pick order or whatever. So I'm just going to let you kind of dictate what you're
okay.
talking about next.
So the next pick for the Seahawks was 142. The Seahawks went Riley Mills, the defensive tackle out of Notre Dame. He's not a nose tackle. He's more of a 3-tech pass rusher. Would have been a top 50 pick if he
like that pick, actually.
if he hadn't torn up his knee. And it was a guy that, looking back, I'm like, I should have given that option a lot more thought than I did.
Me too.
Like I had just kind of, and the thing is that there are other guys like Chevelle Jr., the cornerback, who's in the similar spot, right? Would have been a top first round pick, but he blew out his knee, so now he's available in late in round 2. Like I was giving him a lot of interest, but not Riley Mills, and I don't know why. Like, just going back, I'm thinking about it, I'm like, that was kind of dumb for me to just.
Well, he hurt his knee so late in the process, Keith. It's like,
I know.
I think we were talking about prospects that were available and, make an impact in this year. And, I get it. I get that pick. I really do. It's just one of those things that I don't know that we necessarily missed. I think we probably talked about him as an option, but really didn't settle in on him, didn't mock him to the Seahawks. So we talked less about that prospect overall. But I really, now in retrospect, I really like that prospect and the future that he has on the team.
Exactly. Like I said, in retrospect, I'm like, huh, I kind of missed on that. I went, you guys are going to laugh at this one. I went Torrey Horton,
Oh,
wide receiver out of Colorado State, who the Seahawks took um, 24 picks later.
yeah. Nonetheless,
um,
good pick. And we
um,
talked about him as a player in that range and mocked him. In fact, he was in my final mock at that pick, like 137, before any
mhm.
trades. And he, fit the bill for what we were looking for. Upside as a player, coming off an injury, but it wasn't going to impact his ability to get on the field. Had great 2023 production, right? And then it kind of fell off a little bit for him because he had the injury. And then takes the top off the defense. He ran a 4.41 at the combine, even coming off the surgery that he had in October. So that was great to see. And he's probably got a little bit more juice there to give. Bigger
Yeah,
guy,
he said he's
stature
only been
wise.
running full speed for 2 weeks.
Yeah, right.
Um,
Right. Yeah. So anyway,
so
go ahead and talk about why you made that pick.
Well, I made that pick because they need a guy that can take the top off the defense. They need someone who can stretch the field and create room for guys like uh, JSN and Cooper Cup. And he was one of the better ones in this entire draft class at being able to do that. And he has the higher end ability to be more than just a guy that runs, go routes. Like he's going to be able to um, make adjustments and um, improve his route tree because he's got such good athleticism, change direction ability, that kind of stuff that just pops off the tape before his injury. And so I just think that he is a very high ceiling guy. So long term, he could be something like a staple, just a
Yeah,
core piece for the Seahawks. But
I agree.
short term, he gives you the one thing that your offense needed, and that was a deep threat to open up space for everybody else. And so the marriage of those two just made too much sense, and so that's why I went him there. And like I said, and the Seahawks agreed with the player, not with the value, because they took him,
Not too far
mo-
later though.
most of a round later. 24 picks later. So um,
Probably only because they knew that they knew that he or somebody like him would be available in that range. I think I'm sure they recognize the value of the player, and where you'd taken him, I think is still legitimate, yeah, because I think he's a top 10 receiver in the overarching picture of things. If you take a look at just his skill set, the injury is going to knock him down a little bit, but not that much. Okay. After that.
after that, so at 166, I noticed a player was available who I thought had been taken earlier, and I went ahead and grabbed him. It was Jackson Slater, um, the guard from, I think it was Jackson State. This is a guy the Seahawks had met with 3 times and was someone who um, he makes a lot of sense for Seattle. Like he's a guy that, like, as far as you look at what they are need to make this adjustment into a different um, different scheme, and he's exactly the athletic profile. Now he's coming from um, no, it's not. It was Sacramento State. But yeah, he's coming from a lower level of competition, and he's got some. He needs to um, spend a year in a weight room, uh, getting his body shifted from lower level college to pro before he's ready to be an impact player at the next level. But I do think he has the potential to be an impact player at the next level. Um, and I don't know why. Like I had just in my head thought I'd seen him picked like about a round before that. So when I was looking at who was available and I saw him, I was like, oh crap, that's a done deal. So put that one down. Um, and Tennessee actually made me look good by picking him at 167. So um,
So now Seattle, he just didn't fall into the right spot in the draft for them. They went Torrey Horton, and then the Cable Dew
Mhm.
was the guy that they ended up
I
taking
think
with a similar draft grade.
If Slater had been available at 175, which was their next pick, um, I think he would have been the guy.
I think so
Absolutely. Um,
because they spent so much time on him, and he fits kind of the ideal
yeah,
outside zone scheme profile that they were looking for.
yeah, he was clearly someone that they valued. Were looking at, and I think he would have been the guy. But he went to Tennessee, and that's what happens in the draft because other teams get a shot at the guys that you want, and then if you wait too long, someone picks him up. But that's okay because other guys like Cable Dewar are there too, and so
Right. I
you
think
have
this is one of the guys in the draft that's kind of about as safe as you can get at that range in the draft. It's like,
yeah.
yes, he's gonna need some development time, but after that time, it looks like he could be starter material. Like it's
Mhm.
not one of those guys at this range of the draft where he's a perpetual backup. He's got the opportunity to kind of elevate a little bit. Okay,
I think so.
I like that pick. I think it's a great pick, really, considering the
Uh,
other guys you got in front of him.
yeah, to me that it made just a ton of sense. But yeah, so then at 175, I should probably have the CX took Robbie Oots,
Mhm.
the uh fullback tight end out of Alabama who was
Well,
shocked
it
everyone because
seemed earlier than
most people
necessary, but
like
they know.
I didn't see a draftable grade on him pre-draft. He was always a undrafted free agent on different big boards.
There's a situation where the Seahawks almost took out an insurance policy. It's like we need to come out of the draft with the best um, fullback available, and
Mhm.
they just spent an early pick to go get him. And the type of player that they want, that the skill set that they were looking for, and that's what they did. It's like, yeah, it's early, but they wanted to make sure they solidified that position out of the draft. And now, Brady Russell currently on the roster, transitioning from tight end to fullback full time, he's probably got the inside leg to get this. So in order for him to make the roster, I'm not sure exactly what needs to happen there, but this might be the first player that at this level of the draft that is practice squad bound. But I could
Yeah.
be wrong. It could be this guy that makes it, and Brady Russell's the one that's practice squad bound.
Yeah, it could be either. I mean, ultimately, this guy's going to be way cheaper than Brady Russell, um, and
But
given
not
that
that, not. I mean, yeah,
about half the cost.
yeah. But still,
So
I mean, 800,000 or $1 million versus 1.45.
okay.
Okay, so what do you do?
So I went. I don't even know how to pronounce this guy's name. Um, JJ Pegues.
Big
Um,
E's,
Pegues. Out
Big
of Old
E's.
Miss. A guy who is another nose tackle.
Mm-hmm.
um, I mean, he played it at his play weight was 330 at the combine. He was 309. He's a little shorter at 60 or 62. But this guy's powerful. He pushes people around. He just plays with strength and does a lot of things on the interior. Not the most athletic guy. I don't think he has that potential to develop into a um, you know absolute powerhouse as a pass rusher, but is going to be a rotational piece as a run stuffer right dead center in the middle of that defense. And given that they don't have a nose tackle on the roster currently, uh, or at least didn't at time of draft, um, I got the starter, a couple rounds earlier, and then I got his backup here. Um, Not the greatest pick looking back from my point of view, but uh, This was more of a best player available. Take the player, not the position kind of situation. So
I like the pick. I like him as a player. It's an interesting pick. I If they hadn't have grabbed Robbie Oontz, this pick makes a lot of sense because this guy spent a significant amount of time on the offensive side of the ball as well over there at
tight end.
Ole Miss.
He was a
Yeah,
tight
as a
end
tight end slash
at
fullback.
325. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Kind
so
of
he
look.
scored some touchdowns. He blocked for some, lead blocker for some touchdowns in red zone, short yardage, and yeah, I mean, probably could have filled a similar role with Seattle.
So I'm trying to find where he went. He went 180 to Vegas. So only 5 picks later. That's not bad. The guys that I were really considering at that spot um, were Devin Neal, running back out of Kansas, who was available at that spot. I mocked him to Seattle. I
Mm-hmm.
did think a running back in that range was likely. And then in part because the Seahawks had taken Milrow, and so it's like, okay, they were in the market for a quarterback, and I felt like I should probably not come out of the draft without a quarterback. The other one was Kyle McCord, out of Syracuse, who's kind of the opposite of Jalen Milrow. I mean, yeah, he's got some athleticism, but whereas Milrow's best throws are deep down the field, McCord's a dink and dunk specialist. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, um, I think I ended up picking I went with Hughes uh, as best player available and stopped trying to, you know, that's how I made that choice. Like he's a better player than those other two, and so took position out of it, took the guy,
Nice.
and yeah.
Okay.
So 192, 192. The Seahawks went Bryce Cabledew, guard out of Kansas. Um, it's a position that I was no longer interested in because I'd already taken 2 guards in the draft. And so I went with Kobe King. Um, and my notes here on a separate page. Um, yeah. This is a middle linebacker, pure Mike linebacker. This is um, Yeah. This is a guy that's going to come in and instantly be, that third middle linebacker. And I know that Oladejo had that um, that kind of part of his game because he's going to be more unique and can do a lot of things. Um, More of a chess piece that you can move all over in all 4 linebacker spots. But whereas King is just an inside linebacker, he's kind of a Tyrese Knight. Um, I don't want to say clone, but kind of comes downhill, makes tackles in the hole at the line of scrimmage, um, and is a guy that I like at the position. To kind of wish the Seahawks had drafted because they
Mm-hmm.
need they need a third middle linebacker.
Yeah, the nice thing about Kobe King is he's just solid. Like he's not a special player in any one particular thing, but he's solid in
Mm-hmm.
all the things. I think he's going to be a good pro. He's going to be a good special teams player. He may develop into a starter at some point or come in on an emergency basis and kind of show what he can do and then keep that spot. He's that kind of a player, but he if he was drafted by Seattle, he'd be the third guy or maybe even the fourth guy, and earns time over time. And I like the pick. He's a good tackler. That would be important in Mike McDonald's defense. Good diagnoser, good tackle shedder, good you know hitting guys, all that stuff. I'm not sure about him and pass coverage, but I don't think that would be a big huge part of his game initially anyway. So.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
wouldn't be.
solid.
Um, Interestingly, one of the guys that I considered in that spot was Cody Lindenberg, and I was like,
Hmm.
which one is? And I went with King. King actually went 206 or something like that. Lindenberg didn't go until 222, right before Seattle's next pick.
Interesting.
So yeah, I was a little off on the value of both those players, especially
Not
Lindenberg.
bad.
So glad that I took the right of the
You know,
two on
in
that
this range of the
defense here.
draft, it's just going to come down to what teams want and who they are prioritizing to get on their roster versus, trying to get them or attract them in undrafted, free agency. And all these are kind of, you know, there's no rhyme or reason to some of these at this range in the draft. It is what it is. Okay. So we've got technically 3 picks left.
Yeah. And so at 223, let's see, Seahawks went with Damian Martinez, running back, technically from Miami, although most people from this area will know him from Oregon State.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very interesting runner, power guy. Gonna
Mm-hmm.
make people are already talking about Ken Walker possibly being on the trade block because of that pick. So,
But 2 completely different types of runners. Yeah,
yeah,
I think the Ken Walker thing on the trade block is over the top a little bit right now. If let's see where we're at the trade deadline type of a thing, because I like his skill set. I like his skill set in the scheme. If he can stay healthy, A, B, we don't have really another running back like him on the roster, a real guy, a one-cut guy that can explode through the hole and give you home run ability. We don't have another player like that on the roster. So I don't think that he's in jeopardy of being shipped out. That's just me.
I agree. I think that they're going to have to. He's going to have to show that he can um, make the reads and commit to a hole in the zone stretch scheme rather than try and bounce things, because you can't bounce things in the scheme. But if he does, then his speed is going to be valuable, because he'll be able to, when you put your foot in the ground, make that cut, explode through the hole.
They could be
You know,
wide open after that.
if one linebacker is out of position, you could take it to the house.
Yes.
And that's the kind of stuff that they're gonna be excited about. So
yeah, for Seattle, he's been fringy 1,000-yard runner so far in his career, and he's missed games every year. He could be a 1,400-yard rusher in this scheme because of those type of plays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I took at 223 Caden Prather, wide receiver out of Maryland, 6'3.5", 204 pounds, 4'4", 640, and that's kind of the extent of his impressive athletic physical traits. Not explosive jumper, didn't even run a 3-cone or whatever, not known as a guy. He's a straight line runner, but he's a potential punt returner, kick returner with that speed and that height. He is a deep threat. He's a guy that can stretch the field, doesn't have the upside to become like just a dominant guy the way Horton does. But that height, that speed, he's a deep threat, and a guy that the team could use him on special teams, and it made a lot of sense. So I went that way.
Yeah, I mean, as at this stage of the draft, you're just looking for upside, and he's got about as much as you could get at that point in the draft for a wide receiver. I mean, the height 6'4", the size 204, the speed 4'4", 5 speed, the skill set, the ability to high point the ball, the route tree that he has, I think, in his repertoire already. And just kind of an overall solid player. I think production against top quality opponents like Michigan and Ohio State was was a factor for him, where he really performed well in those bigger games. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that's a really solid pick, especially when you factor in the special teams contribution.
Yeah, and so he went in the real draft. He went 240 to the Bills.
That's a good place to land for him.
Yep, 17 picks after I picked him. I didn't feel terrible about that, given how late in the draft we were. And the guy that I considered picking instead, because I didn't have a running back yet, was Phil Maffa.
Mm-hmm. I like Phil Maffa.
I know you do. That's why I brought him up.
Runner. Yeah.
And he was still available at 234. So I grabbed him there.
I don't even think he was drafted, was he?
He was drafted 239 to Dallas.
Oh, okay.
And I only know that
because
I'm looking at the, I have the draft tracker up and I'm looking at my pick and I see him down below. But
I liked his physical style. So he was a little bit more physical than Damian Martinez. Now, Martinez is physical and will run through people, but Phil Maffa just had an extra little physicality about him that I liked. And not as explosive or fast straight line speed as Damian Martinez. And I don't know that he would necessarily fit in our scheme. But in Dallas, I think that's a gap scheme that they're going to run, and I think that's a pretty decent fit for him.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's going to be a good fit for them. I just like him. I like the power. I like the fact that he's Chris Carson. He will run someone over, can't run away from him.
Right.
But he doesn't care. He just wants to run someone over. And so linebackers and safeties they're not going to want to tackle him over and over again all game because he's going to inflict some pain on them. And I like that kind of runner. So
I do too. All right. You got 2 picks left.
I have 1 pick left.
Really? I thought you had, we have 11 picks and I've got 9 so far for you.
I've got 238. Do the Seahawks have a pick after 238? Did I miss one? No. 238. Seahawks took Ricky White.
Yeah, that's the last pick.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got Zabel, Emanwari, Femi, Deani Walker, Torrey Horton, Jackson Slater, Pegues, Kobe King, Caden Prather. Did I miss one?
No. And then Phil Maffa.
Okay. Oh, you drafted Phil Maffa. Okay.
I was going to take him at 223, chose not to, picked him at
Gotcha. 234. Okay. I didn't realize you said you actually drafted him. Okay.
And then my final pick, this was one of those, the Seahawks took a tight end in round 2 and I didn't have one. So I was like, is there a tight end still available whose name I recognize? And there was, and it was Luke Lachey out of Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
Not particularly athletic, good at blocking, and played the right position that I felt I needed to grab one of. So yeah, that was who my pick was, and I can't give you a better justification than that because that was literally what I used.
Right was position. He drafted or did he go undrafted?
Oh God, I don't know. I don't think he got drafted.
I think he was an undrafted guy, but I like his upside. He's a little shorter arm wise than you would want, but he's going to be an inline blocker anyway. He's not going to give you much upside on the catching stuff, although he could surprise.
Oh, he did get drafted.
Oh, okay.
He was not Mr. Irrelevant, but he was very close. He was 2 picks earlier. He went to the Texans at 255.
Oh, that's a good landing spot for him. He's got a chance to land because of his blocking skills, and he's gonna, like some of the tight ends in this draft, which was a decent draft all the way through for tight ends. He does have the ability to catch. Like he's got nice natural catching ability, soft hands, good catch radius, gets up and gets balls. He's 6'6". But he's got shorter arms, like under 33 inches. That's the only knock I think for him, but
Well,
otherwise a solid player at that range in the
he's
draft.
yeah, at that range of the draft, I think that's the key part. He's just doesn't have the athleticism, the explosiveness for teams to consider him earlier. Um, actually the fact that he got drafted, I did not think he did, but then there's his name. So, yeah. So
Okay, Keith, wrap it
that's
up,
my
man. How
draft.
do you feel about that draft compared to what the Seahawks did? Just
I
straight
kind of,
up.
I mean, straight the fact that the first two picks are the same, the fact that I got Torrey Horton, which was another, so I got 3
Yes.
out of 11 that the Seahawks
Yeah.
picked. I feel
That's
like
amazing.
that's freaking crazy. And I took Torrey Horton like a pick too early, but whatever. I actually I like my draft. I took a pair of nose tackles where the Seahawks didn't take any, and then have
Hmm.
signed 5 since
Right.
the draft ended, trying to make up for it. Um, yeah, I mean, they got the better running back and the better tight end by a mile. I got a couple of wide receiver or another wide receiver in Panther that I like. Um, I got a pair of guys that could play inside linebacker where the Seahawks didn't get any. You
And
could
you
see
got an
that was
edge.
and I got an edge. Or yeah, if Oladejo is, if you see him as an edge, then I got a middle linebacker and an edge, which is good. If you see him as a middle linebacker, I got 2 middle linebackers and no edge. Um, but most importantly to me, I got 2 guys that I think can become starting guards. Zabel's going to start day 1, and Slater has, if nothing, if he doesn't play much this year, okay, but a year from now, he's going to be competing to be the right guard. He's going to be
Also, I will
the guy
say
that's going to step.
this, that Jackson Slater has been talked about in a lot of different circles. And I think, in fact, on his current team about transitioning to center.
Center. Yep. Well, and so is Great Zabel. Like um, that may be his ultimate like landing spot as center. Simply because
I think
of
if he works out at left guard, that's where he's going to stay, because I think that's
probably.
the value of that spot.
Yep. Guards are
But
typically more valuable than centers. So yeah.
but
Um,
yeah, I like that. I like your draft. I mean, it's solid all the way through. I think, it's interesting how, in retrospect now, and you've done this draft and kind of shown it. It's like weird to me just how much Jalen Milroe pick defines their draft. It's like, yeah, Zabel, Emanwari, Arroyo, but that Milroe pick, for whatever reason, is going to suck up all of the air out of the
yeah.
Seahawks draft for at least the next 3 years, unless he flames and is off the roster. But I don't see that happening.
I don't see that happening
Um,
either because if like um they're going to have packages available for him. He's going to come in, and the floor of that pick is that he's Taysom Hill, right? He comes in for a play here and there, and runs wildcat, throws some deep balls out of the wildcat in order to confuse teams and whatnot.
right.
uh, he's gonna, that's kind of his floor. They're
If
gonna
I
be able
was
to
to
use him
put
and do
together
stuff.
packet, if I was the Seahawks and I was to put together packages for them, I would absolutely put together goal line type packages,
Yep.
because this guy gives you an extra dimension that defenses have to prep for,
Hmm.
on the goal line, that are really difficult to defend. Like Jalen Milroe in space at the goal line. Like, you go watch tape of him. My goodness. And a lot of success for him running the ball in that area, like within 5 yards of the
Well,
goal line.
a lot of success running the ball in that area, and a lot of success throwing the ball in that area because you know they start him like moving outside like he's gonna run,
Yes.
and the entire team collapses and leaves guys behind him open.
Yes.
Um,
So I think
and
that's
so,
going to be one of the first things that we'll
yeah,
see him do, is going to be the goal line type usage.
yeah,
And what
Cordell,
goal line is not like at the 1. I'm talking like
yeah,
with after you
in,
get across the 10,
yeah,
he could have
and
some
goal
packages
situations.
built in for him. Now, not every time. We'll
Nope.
see how it goes. But he's going to get something. We'll
Yep.
see that in preseason. I guarantee it.
To me, what we're both talking about here is what the Steelers did with Cordell Stewart. And that might not be a name that our younger listeners remember, but he was Slash is what they called him, and he came in only on short yardage, goal line, that kind of stuff, and just made teams crazy. And then the following year, they made him their starting quarterback, and he had his ups and downs. But there was a year where he did not get most of the playing time, but he got most of the fantasy points because of all the touchdowns and stuff that they scored when he was on the field. And he only played like 20% of the snaps or 15% of the snaps. But yeah, that slash roll, it's fun stuff. And
Yeah.
that's why I don't think I don't think Milroe will flame out because there's value there, right?
Right.
It's just like Taysom Hill stuck around for a lot longer than anyone expected him to, because they could use him in such a unique way and do stuff there, and it worked to his benefit and the team's benefit. And guess, we're talking the Seahawks with Kiffin came from the Saints, right? That's where he was. And so there's going to be some of that.
Kiffin, you're going way off script, dude.
Wait, did I say Kiffin? Oh my God.
Did. That's okay. I got what you meant. Wow. No, I agree. It's like, the floor for him, for me, is like a 60% thrower.
Yeah.
Even in packages. So you're looking at a guy that comes in and you give him a series or you give him the goal line stuff, and not every time, but enough. So where he's on the field about 10 snaps a game. I think that's his first year. Now it could expand or it could contract, but I think he kind of starts with a package of around 10 snaps a game, and you kind of figure it out. You just figure it out. If he's really good at certain things, you enhance those things. And you diminish his weaknesses, and you just give him that first year, get the confidence up. You don't piss off Sam Darnold. You're going to need Sam Darnold. In fact, I would argue that it's extremely important that the team has Sam Darnold. He knows he's the number one. The confidence and the leadership of the players is in him. And I think that's the right approach. You take all the pressure off Milroe, and let him have kind of a fun rookie season, and then we'll figure it out next year, because I think that's the deal. I mean, he's got real upside, but he also has real learning to do. Yeah. And he'll be the first to admit that, which is cool. He's self-aware. But
yeah, that is actually one of the things that we got from this rookie minicamp is he's like, I've got work to do. I've got things I've got to fix before I'm ready to play in this league. And I was, a lot of guys won't say that. They'll, posture and talk about being, ready to play and whatever. And he's like, I got work to do. I appreciate that. I appreciate the honesty and the self-awareness.
So shadow draft, I don't know if you remember all the players that you've taken over the years or whatever, but is there one player that stands out that you drafted in your shadow draft that turned out to be your best selection?
The name of the guy is Levante David. I took him instead of Bobby Wagner.
Wow. You couldn't go wrong with either one of those.
And it's one of those where you miss out on a Hall of Fame guy, and you're like, okay, that has to be the worst pick, right? Because the Seahawks took a Hall of Fame middle linebacker, and I took someone at the same position at the same pick, and I'm thinking, right, that's got to be awful. But Levante David,
right?
Right? I mean, so at the same time, I'm like,
two great players, really. But I mean, obviously Bobby Wagner, but Levante David had a great career.
Great career. And so that's the one that stands out because it has the potential when you look back and you're like, wow, I passed on Bobby Wagner for someone at the same position, you think that's going to be just a terrible pick, like one of the worst ever. It turned out to be not bad. Like, I'll take Levante David and his
Yeah.
career.
Yeah.
So
Very
that's one that I
productive guy.
remember that stands out. I got blasted hard because I did not like the Russell Wilson pick and did not go in that direction. Um, I don't remember others. Um,
It's hard to
it's one
get
of those.
blasted for Russell Wilson at the time.
Oh no,
Because
I got blasted for Russell Wilson in not only in the moment but within a month, because by then he'd already
it
been
was
to his
right.
rookie mini camp and it's been announced that he was in that they were going to move the timetable up and let him compete for the starting job, and people were just like all over me on it, and I was like, okay. And for
The
all the wrong reasons, that I said I hated the pick, not because of the player, but because it was an experiment. Can a guy who's 5'10" be a starting quarterback in the NFL? Because we've never seen it.
right.
And I'm like, it's a third round pick. You could get a starter at another position. This defense is ready to compete now. Why are you wasting such a high pick on an experiment? Um,
So what has that
yeah, that was bad.
particular draft pick and choice taught you about the draft process and the value of positions and all that stuff?
Well, what I learned from that is that you've got to, um, you have a prototype, and yeah, you're going to compare your players to that prototype, right? But give the player a shot. Like, actually be fair about it, because um, one of the things I wrote when I before the draft was that if you go watch Wilson's tape at Wisconsin, you will see absolutely everything you ever want in a quarterback, right? His arm strength, his accuracy, his decision making, like his ability to extend plays, like everything, it's all there. And I'm like, but he's 5'10", so he's not on my draft board. And I shouldn't, like, looking back, I'm like, that was a dumb reason to just completely discredit a player. Yeah, he is 5'10", and that was going to be a challenge for him. But all the other things have to account for something.
Right. Okay. So
And
same
they
question to
did.
you about your pick at Ford, Deonte Walker, defensive tackle, who's going to make an impact, but also he's a defensive tackle, run stuffing variety at that, versus
Mhm.
not taking Jalen Milroe in your draft.
Well, it was more of a um it wasn't that I'd written off Milroe, like, and it's like, oh, he's, off my board or whatever. It was more of a, I wasn't looking for
The roster was
that.
already settled, essentially.
Yeah, I wasn't really looking for that. It wasn't that, like, with Wilson, he was there. It was obvious that they should go that way, and I'm saying no, don't do it. And where with Milroe, it was more of a, yeah, that would be cool, but I need a nose tackle. And it was so. I guess the decision's this, like, the result is the same, but the the feelings behind it are very different. Like, I don't hate the Milroe pick. I love the Milroe pick. And yeah, this is a team that has parts of it that are ready to compete right now. We think the defense is going to be top 5. The offense, if the offensive line gets better, could be pretty damn good. This could be a really competitive team. Um, but I don't hate the Milroe pick the same way that I did the Wilson pick. And I think that is in part because of um, I don't know, my growth as an evaluator because of the Wilson pick, because I screwed that up. I screwed that up badly, and I learned from it, and that's the cool part.
I will say that, when we made the Wilson pick, I loved the pick at the time because I watched him in the Rose Bowl. I watched him compete against Marcus Mariota and Oregon. And I saw something there, man. I saw a competitor. I saw the zeal. I saw the guy that really tried to come back and win that game. And all those things. And the height thing wasn't interfering with his ability at
Mhm.
all in that game. And so I was like,
Or
wow,
or in
you got a player.
any other game, or
Yeah.
in any other game in his college tape. And
Yeah.
that's why in retrospect, it was such a dumb evaluation by me to just completely write him off because he was a few inches shorter than the prototype.
Well, that's kind of the way I feel about Jalen Milroe in a way. It's like he got a lot of people writing him off, and us early in the process, especially after the Senior Bowl where he just bombed, right? It's like, okay, we don't have to worry about that prospect anymore. And we kind of moved on. And then we
Well,
kind of
people
came
were
back
talking
to it
about
at the
him as
end
a
there.
late one, as a late first,
Right. Right.
maybe early second, taking. Yeah, they would have traded up to 35 to take him if they wanted him at the time. And no, it's not worth it, right? To get a guy whose career might end up just being Taysom Hill. And so, yeah, we wrote him off at that point. But writing him off at the end of round 3, like that's a different story, right? And so
Yes.
that's a guy that you know
Could end up defining the draft in a really
could
good way.
in a really good way. And even if his floor, since his floor is as a guy that will have an impact on short yardage and goal line situations and fun packages, he won't be a complete bust where he just never gets on the field, provided that the coaching staff uses him in a way
Mhm.
that'll, because if they sit him on the bench and don't ever give him a shot to in those packages, well, that's more on them than it is on him.
Yeah. And he provides value that way as a trade asset, worst case scenario, because other teams will value those assets.
Yeah.
Okay. One last thing I want to talk to you about. Last year, same thing happened exactly. Las Vegas said that Seattle over under win loss would be at 7.5 wins. And they went out.
That's this year, right?
Yeah, right. But last year, the same thing happened, right? So
I
this
thought
year,
last year was
same
five and a
thing.
half.
Yeah. So this year is 7.5. And
Yeah.
we won 10 games last year. And, I get it. We changed quarterbacks. We lost DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett moved on and blah, 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 blah. But if you really are paying attention, this roster isn't any worse and likely better in a lot of different categories and with a better coaching staff and a scheme that more aligns with what the head coach's vision is, et cetera.
Well, I
So
think what
I did a
this what
thing.
this I was gonna say what it tells you, and you can look across the league and across decades of data, is that um, Vegas, I believe, knows what's going to happen. Like people are saying that Vegas doesn't get it wrong, right? They don't lose a lot of money. You're right, but they also know how to manipulate the better. And
Well, they
so, and
manipulated me because I've not bet ever on a football game or a process or a thing in football or a category or anything. I put down $100
yeah,
on the over on this thing because um, Seattle's not winning 7 games. They're not
yeah,
going to win 8. They're going to win more than that, and it's just
I would
it's a
agree.
fact.
I look at, I think most people who are really like you and I, really into the team, we know the roster, we know what's going on and everything. Um, we're going to see that and we're going to bet the over because that's easy. But if you look at um, the national fan, right, or the casual fan that doesn't know who's on the roster until the first week one, and they're trying to figure it out at that point. They're going to see, yeah, Metcalf left, quarterback left, right? Um, you know, Tyler Lockett's gone, even though we know he was a diminished player. They're like, oh, he was a star, and now he's gone. All that offense is
Right.
gone. And they're just going to be like, oh, this team's going to be awful, and they just, um, assume that they're going to be like a 3-win team. And so they had to put the number low enough that if the tires fall off and Darnold breaks a leg and they don't have a quarterback and they lose a ton of games, that they don't lose money, like a lot of money. Because if they had put it where they think the Seahawks are going to be, which would probably be, they'd probably put it at 9.5. Um, Everyone's going to bet the under
Yes.
nationally. Like they're going to bet the under really hard. And even though Vegas would do that thinking they're going to be right and they're going to make money because if Seahawks are going to hit the over, there is the off chance that an injury, such a key injury happens that they
Yes.
do end up under, and they don't want to lose. Like they don't want to put them in a situation where they're just going to lose a ton of money on Seattle. So by moving it down to 7.5, now you've got a lot less money dumping on the under, and there's enough people out there who will think the over. And so if it is if the Seahawks do go over, they make a lot of money because a lot of people are going under. But if they go under the 7.5, the losses aren't as bad. And so that's really, where you look at from a Vegas point of view, like the way they make the odds is they have to get people to bet where you want them to.
Bet.
So that way you
right.
can make money, but you also have to mitigate those losses if something really weird happens. And I think that's what they've done both last year and this year by putting the Seahawks at 7.5.
So I've got a question for you unrelated to betting. If Darnold goes down in week 1, do the Seahawks go out and try to sign a veteran starter to replace him, or do they ride with Drew Lock and Jalen Milroe as the backup? And if so, do they get the over still?
I think if
with the
Darnold
roster
goes down in week 1, I think they ride with Locke and Milroe, thinking that the defense can keep them in games, and if Milroe can work some magic and score some points in his packages, that they can win some games and do okay. I think that over under becomes a lot more accurate. I would say probably hit the under at 7.
That's still interesting. That to me is an interesting question because a lot of teams would panic and go sign whoever's available out there. In week 1, there's still some guys.
You're gonna have like the Joe Flacco's of the world out there.
But I would take a shot. I would actually stay with what I got and take a shot with Locke and Milroe. I think the fan base would be invigorated, and it'd be like, okay, instead of giving Milroe 10 snaps a game, you give him 20 snaps a game, and you let Locke, run the offense between the 20s and then see what happens. It'd be kind of fun. It'd be fun.
You let Locke run the offense and be a below average starter, but not absolutely terrible. You let the defense try and win you some games, and then you let Milroe come in and be that, lightning rod. And he's going to generate points when he comes on the field.
He's going to generate jersey sales.
Oh, hell yeah. and when you do that, the worst case scenario out of all of it is if without a quarterback, without an offense, the team just absolutely bottoms out. Well, that puts you in position to go draft a franchise quarterback in what looks like it's going to be a really good quarterback draft next year. And
we'll see. We have very little draft capital, but that could change.
I know, but you have Milroe already, but you could go in with a legit top 5 quarterback, like a top 5 pick quarterback, with Milroe as your weapon, lightning bug, and you let them compete and see what happens.
Yeah, fun. Okay, thanks for sharing your shadow draft for the Seahawks this year. I think that was a fascinating exercise. It's fun to talk about all those players too and the possibilities. And
I recommend people doing it if you're into the draft and you watch the draft. Like, just take the time, just write it down. It's not not time consuming. It's not stressful, and to me it's fun. And then you look back. Some of my early shadow drafts, I had people that were picked in like the 5th round that didn't get drafted, and there were some really bad, some really bad picks in there, and that kind of stuff. And okay,
you were very well aligned with how the draft actually unfolded and the value pockets that these players were expected to go in and did in fact go in.
I actually this is one of my better ones as far as that. And I've been doing this a while, and I guess the experience is starting to show. But
yeah. I mean, I've been doing, really deep dives into draftable players and the NFL draft and the lead up to it, doing the research, all that stuff since the late 80s. And you've been very, very close, right? And even more so writing and just really intensive in it. So this is now fun for us. I mean, it takes a lot of work to dive in the way that we do for the 3-month run, at the end of January up until the draft to really do this. But it's fun for us because we really know these players in and out, and especially the ones that end up landing on the Seahawks. It's kind of a gratifying thing, and it's just fun. It's a little wonky for a lot of people, but we get into
whatever.
it.
We do it for us.
Exactly.
So
yeah, there you go. All right, let's get out of here. And next show, I can't remember what we're talking about, Keith, but I know that we were talking about something. I had it.
We're talking about the Seahawks, Bill. That's what we're.
Yes, that's it. That's what it is. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right. Find Keith on Blue Sky at Myers NFL. You can find me at NW Seahawk. The show is Seahawks Playbook Podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform and our own YouTube channel. And hit that subscribe button, share it, like it, leave a comment. That would be great, especially this show. Tell Keith how he did on his draft. I want to hear those.
Tell me how bad I did on this draft. Don't be afraid to just rip my draft like completely. I'm okay with that.
I'll make sure he sees all those comments. All right. We'll talk to you next time. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook Podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.